Good evening, and welcome to the For the Fans podcast. What's up, Kevin?
Hi.
We're here for episode number 18 tonight, and we're gonna chill a little bit tonight. Uh, I'm not as prepared as I'd like to be, honestly, but
Don't let them know that. They don't care. They just want to hear us ramble on about stuff all
who
the
wants to
next
hear us talk about anything, honestly? But I guess that's why you're all here.
all whatever 434 of you. We appreciate it. We appreciate it. I mean, of all weeks, I think you would agree with me, Justin. The Indianapolis is one of those races where it's like it used to be so prestigious, and now it's really just I don't not agonizing, but like it's going to be like, oh, it's going to be okay if it's just below bad. Like it's a really bad weekend. So like I don't know about you, but I watched a lot of football on Sunday. I watched a lot of other stuff while I was watching the races.
Oh, football's back on?
It is. I know
Oh.
you told me earlier you didn't watch anything, but I I shouldn't have watched anything. My Dolphins got just destroyed. They got decimated. So anyone out there who thinks that I bandwagon, I don't know why anyone would think that, but man, I'm not going to bandwagon the the shitty Dolphins. Man, they suck. They're so bad this year. I really don't know what to do. At least I have fantasy. I have fantasy football this year, and I get to follow people who are actually talented.
The
And
Dolphins might be the only team that's possibly worse than the Giants are, so it's that's kind of why I didn't watch a single second of football at all. I
well,
didn't watch any yesterday. I didn't watch any today. I know I've got the fantasy team too, but it's my fantasy team sucks too. So I really don't give a shit about football at all. I didn't
well,
I didn't buy Madden. I won't buy Madden.
I haven't bought Madden yet either, and I don't think I will. I might get 2K. I might get 2K for basketball. I might actually get it for Xbox and PlayStation because my roommate and future possible maybe guest of this show, Sean Butler of Bottom Split Night in America, he plays with a few of his friends, and I think eventually I'll get that. Um,
Did you
but
did you see the new glitch that happened in the group chat today?
for
That
what?
for Madden.
No.
The stupid ass game. I already quit next year for something that happened yesterday. I'm gonna quit the year after that for this one.
Just wait until the just wait until it comes out for PlayStation 5.
I don't even care anymore. The glitch that happened, it was so dumb. The one team was running, and then there was a fumble, and apparently the ball is like super bouncy, so it hits the defensive player's hand and it just bounces like 40 yards in the opposite direction, and some random defensive back catches it and runs it in. It was so dumb.
I mean, that sounds about right.
But
But hey, good news. I'm here. Sorry for leaving you hanging last week.
hey,
I
look,
was
guys, Kevin's back.
I literally the whole
Hi,
entire Monday,
Kevin.
the whole Monday, me and Grace got all of our shit together or got everything inside because we have plants and we have dogs. So we had a bunch of toys outside. We have a ton of boxes in the garage that needed to be broken down. So we spent like 2 or 3 hours breaking down boxes. And I thought, okay, I'm gonna hunker down for this storm just in case. And it honestly wasn't much of anything. So now I have a bunch of water that I don't need. I have batteries that I'm not going to use for a very long time. I have a lot of supplies for the next one, which could happen in 2 weeks. It could happen in 2 years. It could happen in 2 decades. But at least I'm prepared. I need to get a generator still, but at least I'm not dead. And at least I'm here to do this podcast. And you know what? That's all that matters.
Better safe than sorry, honestly. That was a scary storm. Yeah, I think it's still like messing up some shit up north now, but
I
uh,
think it's over finally, but yeah, it was killing Newfoundland and Nova Scotia up in Canada.
the
So
Bahamas are absolutely decimated. It's really
it's
sad.
really tragic, yeah, because Uh, it- I don't know. I still don't know their situation if they're going to be able to get much aid from the United States. I know they're not really. I think they're like an independent nation. I mean, they rely on the U.S. dollar a lot. So I mean, I know we have some kind of connection with them, but it's really sad just because there's. I mean, I've heard the 3,000 casualties and or missing. So it's a real terrible situation. Hurricanes are no joke, and it's a shame. Like every single time one of these hurricanes come, nothing really bad happens in terms of like deaths or anything. I mean, a lot of property damage and a lot of money lost in terms of that. But I mean, that's a really horrible situation. That could have hit Florida, and it could have been a lot worse for us. So I mean, I'm lucky to be here in terms of that. But I mean, the the way this year could go, I mean, there could be another one next week. But I'll worry about that if it comes. I'll worry about that next year when it comes around Daytona next year in August. So I'm fine. Everything's fine.
Find me a damn replacement host next time you decide to have a hurricane. All right.
I'll get I'll get. Well, I couldn't get Sean. I was gonna say I'll get Sean, but Sean was
Sean's
at
gonna
his
be in the
parents'
same
house.
situation as you.
Right. He was at his parents' house, so maybe I can. Maybe you should just bring Kobe on.
Oh Lord, he was actually asking me, "Hey, can you guys have a guest appearance from Kobe tonight?" I'm like,
No.
no.
Yeah, the guy who hates sports. Yeah, no thanks.
So, we got some Indianapolis that we're gonna talk about tonight. They had some parade of speed at Indy. They had some spectacular crashes at Indy. There wasn't really much racing going on at
Not for
Indy.
the Cup race. Not for the Cup race. Definitely better in the Xfinity race, but yeah, not the Cup race.
It
I
seems
don't.
like that's the norm, though, is that the Xfinity race always ends up having the better racing for the weekend, at least for the majority of the season. The Cup has had its weekends, but um, just this, I'm gonna say the P word, package. It,
Hmm.
it sucks.
Hmm.
I mean, what?
Yeah. It's,
They,
it,
they didn't even have a pass for the lead like more than one lap after a restart.
no. I mean, we'll get to Cup in a second, but it was really. It's like it was hard to tell if Harvick was that good or the package was that bad because he would just pull away. But then Blaney got out front and he did the same thing, and then he finished fourth or fifth or wherever he finished way back because he got passed by a bunch of guys. I think Byron finished fourth, but whatever. We'll get to that in a second. But yeah, Indianapolis. Obviously, something has not clicked between NASCAR and uh, the big track. It used to be the Xfinity guys at IRP or Lucas Oil Raceway Park or O'Reilly Raceway Park, whatever they decide to call themselves now. I think it's Lucas Oil, but
Right.
Lucas Oil is a great track. Progressively banked, 5/8 mile, I want to say, it's around that range. Really good track for the short tracks. They run like Silver Crown there, and they still run ARCA there. They run Formula 2000s there, of all things. It's weird. Uh, but they moved the Xfinity race, what, 5 years ago? 6 years ago? Uh,
8 years ago, I think.
2013, I think, was the first year. I'm not 100% sure on that. Uh, but I digress. The racing has been honestly abysmal. It's been really bad. The only thing that's really been remotely interesting is the Xfinity race every year because it's a glorified one lane plate race where they can actually pass down the straightaway. And first year was 2012. Okay, and it's better. What they have now is better than what they had 3 or 4 years ago, but by all means, it's still not great. I'd rather have a short track. So, I mean, we can talk Xfinity. I mean, we're already kind of talking about it. I thought the first 60 laps was pretty boring, and I think everyone was just kind of minding their P's and Q's, and it really showed. I think 8 of the 14 lead changes was in stage 3. It's obviously the longest stage, but that's only in the last 40% of the race. Uh, It was still hard to pass, though. I mean, by all means, if you got out front, you had the advantage. I really want to know what they can do to get the drag or get the suck up better down the straightaways, like they have in IndyCar, because that's how IndyCar passes here. They don't pass in the corners. I mean, they do very, very rarely, but the way they pass is on the straightaways, and it happens sometimes. It happened if someone was right behind another guy, like if third and second were nose to nose, and the leader was 2 or 3 tenths out. He would get past, and then there would be some kind of freight train going on. But other than that, there really wasn't any passing for the lead. I mean, I know you're a huge Allgaier fan, and I'm sure it was frustrating to hear or to see that he was right all over Kyle and couldn't do anything with it at all. Like, at all.
It was so frustrating because I blame myself in this. I tried a new strategy because I've pretty much watched every single Xfinity race this season from start to finish. Maybe a couple laps here and there I missed. I know Indianapolis is possibly Justin Allgaier's best track on the circuit as far as ovals are concerned. He won here last year. Yeah, he was going up against Kyle Busch, but I mean, Kyle Busch hasn't won every single race that he's competed in this year. He's had issues, so it's not out of the realm of possibilities that something could happen or Justin could just be better today or that day. So I tried a new strategy. As a fan of that race, I didn't watch it. I turned it on for the first maybe 5 laps, and I'm like, you know what? I need groceries. I drove over to the local ShopRite and spent about an hour and a half in there. I check Twitter every now and then, saw some updates. I told you guys what my strategy was, and then you're like, "Oh, Allgaier just wrecked," but it was really John Hunter Nemechek.
I know that was the joke.
I know. I didn't freak out because Twitter didn't say it, and Twitter was, helping me out in that time. So I get done with everything, and then I get home, and there's like maybe 10 laps to go, and you got Bell, you got Reddick, and then the next row is Busch and Allgaier. And they go into turn 1, and then they're going into turn 2, and I screamed, I did, when Bell got loose underneath Reddick. That wreck was massive for the lead. Both of those cars were absolutely destroyed. They weren't even up to full speed yet. And just both of those cars, Bell gets loose. Reddick was trying to pinch him down and just took the air off of him. And they slid into each other. And it was very reminiscent of a fatal wreck we all know at Daytona. But thankfully the outcome was a lot better. And it was cool, the camaraderie that they had after wrecking each other. They got out of the infield care center and they were doing interviews together. Usually somebody wrecks you, you don't want to be anywhere near them or you want to fight them or whatever. But they were, I think it was Bob Pockrass was doing a video with both of them in it, and they were talking and answering together and off of each other. So that was kind of cool. But not cool that they wrecked out so horrifically. And that gave the lead to Kyle Busch, who started on the pole and arguably had the best car all day. And Allgaier was in second, but Allgaier was right there, tucked right up his ass for those last 4 laps. And he couldn't do anything. He couldn't pull out. He couldn't. And not to say that Kyle Busch, maybe he had just a faster car the entire day. If it was Kyle behind Justin, we might have seen Kyle been making the moves, and then Justin maybe able to make the moves back after Kyle gets around and they do crossovers. But because Kyle was out front and Justin was right there, it just nothing happened. They ran in a train for the last 4 laps, and Kyle Busch went on to win. I think they said that only... No, that can't be right. Well, I guess, but Kyle Busch won 4 out of the... Now he's won 4 out of the 7 races that he's competed in the Xfinity Series.
How many can he run?
No, I'm just talking about in Indianapolis. He can run 7. Actually, he did win 4 out of the 7 races that he competed in this season as well, which is weird. That both of those stats match up, and that I'm talking about something completely different. But they can run 7 races, so Kyle Busch is done for the rest of the year. That was his last race. He couldn't race next week anyway because they cut out all Cup drivers
For the
from
playoffs?
from the cutoff race and from the playoffs.
Okay.
So their cutoff race is next week at Las Vegas. So
Gotcha.
Kyle wouldn't have been able to race that anyway.
Not that it matters. I mean, this top 12 is already set, but yeah. Okay. Yeah, I mean, kind of goes back to my point. I really wish they could do something about the suck up. That's like the only thing that the Xfinity race really doesn't have. It, I mean, the guys are running pretty close to each other in the corner. I mean, they're running damn near wide open. If if you can get within a couple tenths of somebody, I mean, you can go watch. There's a really good, pretty high quality video of Ontario Speedway. Are you familiar with Ontario?
I've heard it.
It's basically West Coast Indianapolis, and then they shut it down for a bunch of apartment complexes or shopping center or whatever
Sad.
they made it. Just like Riverside, same shit, different track. Uh, they, I mean, you can watch those races. They're slow. They're doing 120 miles an hour in the corner, but man, they pass. They pass each other really easily because they can suck up through the straightaways, and they can slingshot and then go 3 wide, and then they go back in the corner and they're single file because it's a 1-lane track. But I mean, the racing was good. Not the most exciting because I mean, damn, it's a 150 mile an hour freight train for the most part, but they do pass, and they need to figure out something like that for not only Cup, because that was horrendous, but for Xfinity as well. And I wonder if there's something they can do. I know that the roof rail might not be the best answer, because I was talking to Brandon Howe, our friendly neighborhood SRG engineer, and he said that they did a test with it in 2001, and it apparently made the car incredibly unstable. And I'm willing to bet it's because all that air that got deflected didn't go to the spoiler, so it was incredibly unstable. So that's probably out the window. But I know with the Gen 7, there's rumors of the window angle being higher, increasing the front drag. So maybe they can do that for the Xfinity car as well, just as a basic universal change, so they can suck up on the straights, because that's the only thing this package is really missing. The field gets spread out enough to where having a good car matters. You can get right behind somebody, and if you have help, you can pass. But I really think if the racing was at optimum possibility and optimum potential, Justin Allgaier could have passed Kyle, and I think Kyle could have passed him back and forth for the last 5 or 6 laps. I think that's the only thing that's any different from, say, IndyCar this year, and that's exactly how the finish was for IndyCar. Passing back and forth, because they had enough suck up down the straightaways. They have some aero push issues as well, which we've witnessed in 2019, but they can pass, and they can make their way through the field, but they can't really hear, at least make it to the leader. So I'd say in terms of like a good, this is a good package for Xfinity. The design of the car is a lot different than the Cup car. The Gen 6 is just way different, and it just does not produce the same results. And it really shows that I don't know. Did they ever run the 450 horsepower package at Indy? No, right?
Not the Cup guys. The Xfinity guys ran this same exact package last year. And it was after the Cup guys had run this package at Charlotte for the All-Star race. So really they based the 2019 Cup package with a little bit more horsepower off of what we had in Xfinity this year and last year, and what we had
2017 too. They
Right.
did it. Yeah.
But I mean, looking back at last year's race too, I mean, if you look at the finish where Allgaier won and Reddick finished in second, Reddick really couldn't pass either, and those cars were pretty much equals. They were teammates. They were, both junior motorsports cars. It's crazy because I feel like NASCAR puts on the blinders to things like issues like this, and they look at earlier in that same exact race, they had a 4 wide finish to end the stage. So that validates stage racing, and that validates the package, and everything else can go scratch. When in reality, it was just a happenstance that it happened, and it was really cool, but it was one instance in a million, and it hasn't happened since. They haven't gotten that same 4 wide type finish to end a stage, end a race, end anything, or even happen except on restarts. So, it's crazy to think that our current Cup Series package is based off of, one 4 wide finish in reality, and one All-Star race. It's, I just, we talk about it every week, God damn it.
Well, it's the whole, it's good enough.
It's not good enough.
Well, that's their minds. Oh, it passes the eye test. What more could you want? There's a guy right on the leader's ass. What more can you want? What more do you need? It's well, can you pass him? I mean, go watch plate racing. They're within a second of each other, but can they pass? Up until Talladega, no, they couldn't. They really couldn't, and that was the issue. Now they can because they fixed it. It's not perfect, but it's a lot better. And I think they could do the same thing with this Xfinity package. I don't know what the answer is. I don't think more rear drag is going to do anything. Perfect case. I mean, look at the Cup car. They have an 8-inch spoiler, and it's not doing anything for the passing. There's got to be fundamental changes to that car. And I think, I hope when the Gen 7 becomes a thing, 2 or 3 years down the road, they do something for Xfinity. I don't think the Xfinity car is inherently broken like the Gen 6, but the Xfinity car can be improved on. The truck can be improved on significantly. That truck has more aero push issues than any other series. That, at least according to the drivers. It's by far the worst. But I mean, the Gen 6 is so bad. I don't know about that. The whole entire sanctioning body needs to look at these races. And yeah, I think the speeds are fine. I honestly was okay with the guys doing 190 miles an hour going into turn 1. I was okay with the Cup guys going that fast. I was okay with the Xfinity drivers doing 180 into turn 1. That's fine. But let's slow them down in the corner, 1. And let's get these guys to passing on the straightaway. Whatever that needs to, however you need to do it, that's the way to pass here. And there was a poll in one of the groups that we manage. Do we want track-specific packages? And I think we already have that, but I think that needs to be expanded upon for the Gen 7. And I think they're going to have to do that because there's so many different tracks and there's so many different ways to make the racing better. I mean, they kind of had that in the mid-2000s. I mean, go look at a Daytona Cup car and then go look at an Indianapolis Cup car. They don't even look like it's the same car. It's a completely different looking vehicle. So, I mean, I would be okay with that. I think it's good to focus on what can we do to make the racing better and what can we get rid of to make the racing better and what can we add to make the racing better. I think that's got to be first and foremost in terms of the future for every series. I mean, cost obviously is going to be a big part of it, but I think we can. That's something that you got to worry about. Period. So I think they can do it without making it a ridiculous amount of money. But as far as the Xfinity race goes, I really did enjoy, like I said, Stage 3, all of Stage 3. The wrecks were heinous. The Christopher Bell and Tyler Reddick wreck, you could really tell that Reddick just knew what happened. I mean, these cars produce so much side force, and a lot of the time the setup leans against that for it to go fast. So anytime a guy takes that away, the car has just become a wrecking loose machine. So, I mean, Reddick knew exactly what happened, and Bell knew exactly what happened. That's why I want to get rid of that. I know we go on this tangent every single week about the aero package, but I mean, if these guys didn't have all the side force, we wouldn't be seeing those wrecks. That never happened. I mean, it did, but it did not happen at the frequency that we see it for Cup, and we never saw it really in Xfinity. And we'll talk about it here in a little bit, but I mean, there were some really, really bad wrecks caused this week because of that, and they need to focus on that too. Other than that, I really like the Xfinity race just because it's honestly the best race of the week out of two. Like it's like picking between a turd and a turd with flies on it. I'd rather just have the turd. So that's my opinion on it.
You don't have to get so shitty there, Kevin.
But
Oh man, the one last point I wanted to make is on the points. It pretty much is gonna be Tyler Reddick winning the regular season championship unless he finishes last and Bell sweeps the stages and wins. There's no other way that Tyler Reddick can not be the regular season champion on at Las Vegas. So Reddick will get those 15 bonus points. Reddick, Bell, Custer, big three. Then you got Allgaier with no wins, Cindric with 2, Briscoe with a win, Gregson, Michael Annett, who got that win at Daytona, Justin Haley, Brandon Jones, John Hunter Nemechek, who Adam Stern reported today that his team might not exist next year, but that's neither confirmed nor denied at this point. And then Ryan Sieg, who is the perennial underdog, he is rounding out the top 12 in the final position in the playoffs. Unless Gray Galding, Jeremy Clements, Brandon Brown, Ray Black, Garrett Smithley, or Stephen Light get to victory lane at Las Vegas by some miracle of anything, that's going to be your top 12 and your playoff drivers, because nobody else can get in on points at this point. So, yeah, Xfinity, good racing, better racing than Cup this weekend. If you can consider anything racing this weekend, it was more or less just crazy restarts and racing or pacing in a single line at 180 miles per hour or 190 miles per hour. That's my take on it. At least I wasn't impressed with any of it either. But yeah, that was the Xfinity race. Cup race.
Well, real quick.
Yeah.
At least we have like that possible someone may win Vegas and get their way in. And that's pretty much all we have. I mean,
do
we
you
kind of
really
had that.
think not Noah Gregson, Gray Galding is gonna have a winning car at?
Hey, you never know. Jeremy Clements might sneak one.
Jeremy Clements won on a road course, which is a completely different animal. And yes, we've seen like Chris Buescher win at Pocono in the Cup Series because of weather. And not to say that there can't be weather in the desert, but chances are very unlikely of getting an upset winner. I'd say less than a 1% chance that we're going to get any of those guys.
So you're saying there's a chance.
I'm saying there's not very much of a chance. And I'm not really getting my hopes up for any of that. I mean, if it happens, hell, we had Bubba Wallace finish third on Sunday. Imagine if he would have gotten around Kevin Harvick and Joey Logano and won that race. And we would have Bubba Wallace taking the last spot, and then 3 of those 4 guys who were racing for the final 2 spots were out. It would have been absolute mayhem. And Bubba hasn't shown any, anything this year for speed, and then he comes out to Indianapolis and gets a 3rd place finish, which was absolutely incredible. We'll get to that in a little bit, but we'll move on to the Sunday race, which was an interesting day because they ended up doing qualifying in the morning.
which I did not know about until about 20 minutes ago.
Yeah, I don't have they ever. I don't think they ever have done qualifying on the same day as the race in the Cup Series.
I like it.
It was weird because I had just walked into my store and I started doing my, usual job duties, and all of a sudden I got a notification on my phone, and I didn't realize it either. It was NBC Sports app telling me, "Don't miss qualifying. They're going on right now." Whoa, what? It's 10:30 in the morning. What do you mean they're going on right now? And they did qualifying, and they did, the tech inspection and whatnot, and they got the cars on the grid, and they even moved up the grid time because there was a threat of weather, and they got the green flag at like 2:06 or something. So
Yep.
in the matter of like 2.5 hours, they finished up qualifying, got the cars teched, and back on the grid to do the race. So, it was different. And I wasn't there, of course. I don't know, like, maybe I could have asked somebody who was there, because I do know a couple of people who were there. I could have, maybe Zach Catanzaretti or Dustin Albino, I maybe could have asked them how the whole process went. But they, it seems like a quick turnaround for it. And I don't know how the logistics work, honestly, but I mean, they got it in, they got it to work, and not for nothing, they probably had to pick pit stalls from the week before or something. So it probably wasn't that crazy, but yeah, qualifying on the same day as the race, different.
It. I'm okay with it. I think. I wonder as because unfortunately the sport is, whether or not people want to believe it, it is in a decline. Uh, I would say it's in a brief resurgence for this year. I know Darlington was really good for attendance. I know we can get to the attendance for the 400. I thought it was abysmal, but it's always hard to tell with this track because there's almost 300,000 seats. So 100,000 people here looks like really bad. So, but I'm really curious, especially when we've got things like the double header at Pocono, and they've really consolidated some of these weekends to 2 days if they can get away with it. I wonder if in the future we start seeing qualifying at noon and then the race at 3, because they already run a lot of these races at 3 p.m. And I mean, if you're interested enough to wake up on the West Coast for qualifying at 9 a.m., that's actually kind of cool to me. You tune in to qualifying. That lasts about an hour, hour and a half, and then in another hour and a half, you have the pre-race, and then you go racing. Like that, I think that would be really cool as a fan at the racetrack. Like if they did that for Daytona, I think that'd be pretty awesome. Get there at 5, watch qualifying, and then they obviously just set it up for the Cup race. I mean, they do that for Xfinity. I don't see why they can't do it for Cup.
Yeah, they have been doing it for Xfinity, and they have been also doing it for the Truck Series. So it's not like it's something completely out of nowhere. It's just different as far as Cup racing is concerned.
Yeah, so I mean, I think this is something that they're going to start really looking at to consolidate, and I really think it's a good move for creating fan value. Because I mean, qualifying is not the most exciting thing, but you better believe I'd show up to the track 2 or 3 hours early if I knew something was going on. And for a lot of those tracks, 2 or 3 hours early means an extra set of concessions purchased, more beer, more food, more water, more snacks. So I mean, I see it as a win for the track, and I think I see it as a win for the fans. So I think that was a good move for Indianapolis, just as a whole, and they're doing what they can. Obviously, it's a combined effort between NASCAR and the track. I think they're doing what they can to make this as exciting as they can. So I really do commend that move for sure.
Did you happen to find? Because I haven't. Have you seen like an official number on the amount of people who were in attendance on Sunday?
No, I've heard 25,000. I've heard 50,000. I've heard 60,000.
I could have sworn I heard 85,000 on the radio today, but there was no way in hell that there
Did
was
Dave Moody say
85,000
it?
people.
Did Dave Moody say it?
Actually, I think it was Dave Moody.
Okay, well then take that with a grain of salt water. Uh, the one thing I wonder if they're including is there was a dance festival or some EDM festival or something in the infield. I wonder if they're including that.
Well, they had that at the Indy 500. They have that at the Indy 500 every year, and you and I and Ryan sat across from it in turn 3 last year.
The whole time. We
Yeah,
could hear it.
It was crazy looking in there, like under the cautions, just seeing how many people and like watching them bobbing up and down and dancing to the music and whatnot. Maybe they do factor that in, but again, when you and I and RNC went to the Indy 500, that place was absolutely packed. That it was like a small city. You got 250,000 people in there, and the stands were packed. NASCAR, IndyCar. I mean, we're talking about the Indy 500 is the biggest race in all of motorsports, and then there's the Brickyard 400, where really it's just another race in the season, which they tried to make it important by making
They
it.
try to make it sound prestigious, and it just does not work.
Well, it was at one point when they first started going, they were selling out the place, but you got to look back at. And I take these 2 points as to why Indy has kind of fallen off in its attendance and why it's kind of not selling out anymore, because it was selling out when they first started going there. You got to look at 2008 with the tire debacle, where they were going 10 laps and people were blowing a tire, and it was a really dark spot on the sport that day. And then you got to look at, I think you said it was 2012, the first Xfinity race.
Yep.
You kind of cheapen the Cup race by allowing the lower series to also race the big track. It's great for the Xfinity series. Is it? It is.
Really?
I'm gonna be on that side. That, I mean, for the Xfinity guys, it's really good for them as far as they are concerned. It's not good for us, the fans, at all, because the racing quality isn't what it used to be at ORP, IRP, whatever RP that it currently is. Short track racing is short track racing, and you're not going to beat that at all. But you know, you got this whatchamacallit. I just realized that I never hit the record button on my OBS, and I'm really sad right now, but that's gonna distract me. Anyway,
What does that even mean?
it means that we're not gonna have an episode up on Apple or Spotify or Google, but who cares?
Watch it on YouTube. Just go to YouTube. Fuck
It's
it.
not gonna be on YouTube either. It'll be on Facebook.
That's fine.
Yeah.
That's fine.
We'll fix it next week. I'll hit the record button next week.
Anyway,
it's good for the Xfinity Series because it brings more money in. It allows for there to be more money to the teams. It's more prestigious for them. They get more for their drivers that they get to race on the big track as opposed to racing at the short track across the road. So it's better in that sense, but it's bad for the fans because, you know, you're not getting the same racing that you would get at the Indy Raceway Park, and you're not getting also the exclusivity of the Cups cars being on the big track. So it's twofold there, and I would gladly give up the Xfinity race at the big track to get the Cup guys to have that exclusivity again. Whether it's a good race or not, and it really never has been a good race in its 25 years of existence. There's maybe been like 3 moments of all time that have been memorable. The Casey Kane win is one that comes to mind, but otherwise, I really can't think of much else besides the 2008 race. I don't even remember who won the 2008 race. I just know that there was a tire debacle.
Johnson.
Was it? Who cares? It, Indy doesn't produce memorable races, but it was prestigious because it was NASCAR's attempt at the most famous speedway, and it's cheapened itself because of the Xfinity Series being there. So that's, I don't know. That's just my take on it.
Well, I think another issue, obviously, is the racing quality. I could easily argue that the racing in the '90s and even into 2000s was way better. I mean, yeah, guys dominated. That would happen. I mean, Gordon, like, he was that dude at this place. He killed it every single time he showed up here. So I mean, you'll have that at a track as unique as Indianapolis. If someone nails the setup, they've got notes for the last decade here. You're gonna figure it out. But it's a little different now, just because you get a guy that's out in the lead and you can't do anything. I looked at the Racing Reference event page, and every single lead change I see is either on pit road during a caution or on the first lap of a restart. And that's it. There was not a single pass for the lead at all the rest of the race. And a lot of people said this race was good. I don't know how you could interpret this as good. Better than maybe last year. Maybe. Entertaining? Sure. If you like watching Brad Keselowski almost do a fucking barrel roll or whatever he did into the tire barrier, we can talk about that in a second. I just don't know what they see. I can understand being on the fence because, like I mentioned, there was some crazy stuff that happened in this race. But the only real bright spot that I can even think of was Ryan Blaney being very close to winning this race, because if there wasn't a caution for the 36, or no, it was for
No, it was for the 36.
Well, no, he lost the lead when Larson wrecked. That was when he actually lost it. That was 2 or 3 cautions before that. And I mean, that was the only reason. And then he got stuck in the traffic, and he ended up finishing 7th? Yeah, 7th. So you have a guy who passed Harvick, not really passed him, side drafted.
Took advantage on the restart.
Right, took advantage of being on the outside on the restart and led almost 20 laps, pulled away, and then you have the same guy end up getting freight trained at the end of the race by Byron, Boyer, and Hamlin. So it's like, did he have a good car or did he have clean air? And then you go back to Harvick. Did he have a good car or did he just have really good clean air?
Oh, I can guarantee you Kevin Harvick had a good car. He probably had the best car.
But like, I'm saying like, it shouldn't be a question. If a guy is in the lead, I want him to be the best car. I don't like this idea that track position means that much. I don't like this idea that a guy can just decide like to take no tires and fuel only, and he's a second off pace if he's in the back, like say in 20th. But if he's in the lead, no one can pass him.
Well, that's how Joey Logano got the stage 1 victory. Was
right, exactly. I know. It's like he was on 27 lap older tires and he won the stage. Like, that's insanity to me. So, like, I think that's one factor of it, because I mean, a lot of these fans, we have some dumb fans in this community. I think that's obvious. There's a lot of really, really dumb fans.
Not you guys. You guys are great.
Yeah. Yeah, don't tune out because I'm calling you dumb. I mean, guilty by association. I've said some dumb stuff myself. But a lot of fans understand this is not going to be a race of of guys slingshotting into turn one and passing and then trying to make it back up the next straightaway. It's not IndyCar, and I know that. So, I mean, honestly, if I was in the Indy area, I would have not gone to this race, just because it's hot, it's you can't see anything. At least with Indy 500, it's a prestigious race, and you can see some crazy action because they're going 230 miles an hour into the corner. You really can't see that with Cup. So I just don't understand why anyone would want to go to this race unless it's really, really convenient for them or they're getting paid to do it. I really don't. I can understand why they went from selling out this place to basically like struggling to hit 20% in attendance. I mean, we had Harvick just demolish the field. Logano had no ability to pass him. He was 6 seconds off of the leader at a race that is supposed to be like really close. Like that's the whole point of this package is that they need to be up and all over each other. Like that's the whole reason why they bring it here. If they're gonna be that spread out, they just need to bring the 2018 package. Geez, do something different. And then you have Bubba Wallace. What a story for Bubba. Like I have no like he was in that pit road wreck, and all of a sudden he's got speed. Like I don't know. I know he had speed during the whole week, but man, I think if he got out front, he would have done the same thing that Blaney did. He would just pulled out and just set sail, and he would have won, and that would have just been the story of the year because it would have been. I was looking at the thing, the standings. He was 27th in points going into this race, and we had our own little story in our little league where the guy was 26th in points, made his way into the chase, our chase, by winning the last race of the regular season. That would have been such a cool story, but instead we get Kevin Harvick winning.
I mean, nothing against Kevin Harvick. He was definitely the best car of the show, but it was really cool because Bubba Wallace didn't really utilize strategy to get in that position either. He was legitimately that fast for the majority of the day. He had I know at one point he was running just outside like the top 10, and that was during the long run. He did catch the caution right, where he made the right pit stop at the right time and was able to get up that way. But he kept it. I mean, you looked at some of these guys like when Newman and Suarez and Jimmy Johnson at one point when they were up there and they really had no business being up there, they were getting swallowed alive. There was one point where Johnson was he was out there on 2 tires, I want to say, and everybody else was on 4. And if you weren't on 4 tires and you weren't in the lead, yeah, tires made a huge difference because once you're in the dirty air and everybody's in the dirty air, it's a whole different playing field. Everybody's on equal footing that way. But it's just the leader that has such an unfair advantage in that sense. But Bubba worked his way up, and he made the moves, and he ended up with a 3rd place finish, which was really incredible. Right now on the stream, I've got the Landon Castle crash playing. Man, what a hard hit! The roof actually buckled on that. I don't think I've seen a wreck that hard in a long time. That was incredible.
Yeah. Oh my God! I just saw it on the thing, I had to tune in for myself. This track is so unsafe. Like, oh my God, it's so unsafe. I mean, obviously they pioneered the safer barriers, but man, that is a horrible hit. That is such a terrible hit.
Imagine if they were going faster, if they had like the 2018 package on there.
Well, imagine if they had this package, but the 2014 2014 horsepower. They were flat flying here back then. Like they were digging back in the day. They were doing 212 miles an hour, 215 miles an hour going into turns 1 and 3. So I mean, he would have had a lot more speed if he was accelerating out of that corner. But yeah, hard wreck. And then of course, you kind of showed it briefly there. Why is it paused?
I don't know. I'm trying to figure that out. There we go. It's back up.
Jeez. All right. Uh,
Something
Jesus.
about bit rate.
Jesus.
Gotta
But I
love
mean,
it. We're learning new things tonight.
the Brad Keselowski. Oh my God, this thing is still lagging. The Brad Keselowski wreck was like beyond brutal. Like I've never seen anything like that happen at an oval. With the whole, the tire barrier. Like I never realized how negatively angled that pit road is, or not the pit road, that wall to the infield is, until I saw like an image of it. That's like a really, really dangerous wall. And not to go back to the whole Pocono discussion with IndyCar losing the Pocono date, why is Indianapolis getting exempt from this? Like this is inexcusable to a lot of people. I thought it was fine. It's a tire barrier. It's way safer than a concrete wall, which is what it is. It's a concrete wall. So I mean,
you know what? Not for nothing. I felt like that was almost a little bit more unsafe, just because of he went from like he was going at a speed and then he just came to a complete stop, and that is one of the most dangerous things that can happen to a race car is going from over 100 miles per hour to zero that quick. I was a little bit more worried from that because you can get like massive whiplash and shit like that. I was actually worried for Brad's safety in that wreck. But he was thankfully able to climb out. Hitting that wall probably would have hurt as well, but he would have grazed or bounced off of that. Either way, the way that angle is shouldn't be. It shouldn't. If they're gonna race the oval part of the track, they should at least have a wall that they can set up that fixes that angle from being hit. Like Brad said in his interview, I'm trying to pick it up here. He says, and I quote, "I think there probably should not be weird angles like that to wreck on. This track was really part of the safety revolution about 15, 20 years ago, and I think it's time for another." He's talking about another safety revolution, because, I mean, it's not only Indianapolis that has weird angled walls like this. There are a couple tracks out there on the circuit that have, like, outlets that, they're there for like ambulances or track safety personnel to easily get on track, but it shouldn't be hittable by the cars at a weird angle that it could cause harm like that. It's that shit's scary. It really is.
I mean, look at the advertisement for the link we're looking at. I mean, they've come a long way since Dale Earnhardt's crash, and these tracks need to get on board with looking at every single square foot of wall. I mean, look back at like Vegas, 2007, 2008, when Gordon hit, and it was a bad hit. And I mean, we've seen that a handful of times where just a horrible angle. Elliott Sadler at Pocono comes to mind.
I think that was the hardest hit in like all of NASCAR history recorded.
Right. That's probably the worst in terms of G-forces for sure. If that wreck was 10 years prior, say 1999, Elliott Sadler would have died. Yeah. I think that's unfortunately a safe bet. It's a horrible thing to say, but I think that's what would have happened. So I mean, the cars are safe. The Hans device has probably saved more lives than any car construction built. I think that honestly has more to do with it than anything. I think they could even still run the 2007 car, and the same thing would have happened. I think that same result would have happened with Michael McDowell too. Right. I could be wrong, but that's my opinion, and I'm sticking to it. But the one thing that can be controlled at this point from a week-to-week basis are the tracks. I mean, we can't eliminate any of these tracks. It's not like how IndyCar can kind of have a fluid schedule, at least the illusion of a fluid schedule, and just dump Pocono for, say, like a Richmond. They can't do that for Cup. So, at least not yet. So, these tracks got to get their act together and look at the way these tracks are and see what they can do to make it better. Daytona made their turn one inside wall better when Kyle Busch destroyed it and broke his legs. They fixed it. And I think Indianapolis is going to take a look at those walls and realize they probably are in play more than they realized, obviously, because it was hit. I think they never really thought about it because there's no way a guy could come off a turn two and hit that. And you better believe it. They were wrong on that one because he absolutely clobbered it. He absolutely destroyed those tire barriers. And I don't know what's worse because, I mean, obviously I'd have to look at like things like G-force readings and stuff. I think the energy of the hit being absorbed is better than a giant ricochet hitting a concrete wall and spinning back out. I don't know. I don't know what's worse. But, I mean, regardless, it was a heinous wreck, and it does not need to happen ever again. But on a new note, we had some bubble racing throughout the week, and unfortunately, for the first time ever, we have a playoff setting with no Jimmy Johnson. And I don't know how to feel about it. How do you feel about it?
I think it's pretty crazy that they've been doing this since 2004 with playoff style racing for the championship. And, you know, in each different iteration of the, whether it was a chase for the cup, whether it was the playoffs, whether it was these round of 12, 8, 4, Jimmy Johnson's been in the playoffs and now he's not. And it doesn't feel right because, you know, he's a 7-time champion and he's had a rough year. He's had the worst year to date for him. Last year was bad. This year was worse. So it's crazy. Yeah, Indy, he wrecked out in Indy. He had contact with his teammate and spun out and spun into Kurt and, you know, a couple other cars. And one race doesn't define a season, though. That's been his whole year. That's been his whole season, has been just misfortune after misfortune after misfortune. Just looking at a couple of his stats on Racing Reference this season, and it's so sad that he just trying to pull it up at least. He had that pull at Texas, and that was pretty much it. He's had a couple of top 5 runs here and there, like at Texas. You had Chicago and Daytona, but I mean 30th at Kentucky, 30th at Loudon, 15th at Pocono, 19th at Watkins Glen, 34th at Michigan, 19th at Bristol, 16th at Darlington, 35th at Indy. A lot of these tracks, he's like the most winningest active driver, and he's not even been close all year to being victory ready at all. I mean, even in these top 5 efforts at Chicago and Daytona, and Texas, maybe Texas was the best race that he put together from start to finish, but even then he wasn't ready to win a race at that point, and it's just been like that all season for him. So it's sad to see it. It's like my thought is that it's crazy. It's that, you know, it's like when Jeff Gordon was kind of getting towards the end of his career, that he wasn't really as competitive as he was, and thankfully for Jeff Gordon and Jeff Gordon fans like yourself, he was able to put together a miraculous effort at Martinsville to get him into the Final Four in his last season, which almost could have ended up being a storybook ending for him. It was still pretty magical and really cool for Gordon and his fans. But I don't, before that it was pretty tough for him, and now it's seems to have bitten Mr. Johnson, Mr. Seven Time.
Coming from a guy who watched Jeff Gordon have his struggles, I really can't. Uh, I should say, I really can imagine how Johnson fans can feel, especially when there's a lot of things that you can blame. I don't want to say it's Jimmy. I mean, the guy is in the best shape of his life. The dude does marathons and all these triathlons and all these endurance events. The dude's in great shape. Uh, it's not that. Chevy has been bad. They've been really bad since the Camaro. The Chevys have been, I mean, Hendrick has not been what they have been in years. It's a really bizarre turn of events. They're basically plate racing. Once you go to the plate races, they're in the top 10. They're in the top 5. They're running for pole. But that's really where it ends. The most consistent speed comes from Kyle Larson and Kyle Busch, or Kurt Busch, sorry. And by all stretch of the imagination, Kurt Busch is not dominating races. He's not going out there and running first or running second. He's running 5th, and that's about his ceiling every single week, unless something crazy happens. Larson runs up front, but then he wrecks, and I think it's because he's trying really hard. He's trying really, really hard to produce in that car. And I don't think it's to the same status as a Penske car, any of the top end Fords. I don't think it's the same status as any of the Gibbs cars. I think Chevy's at a huge disadvantage until the Gen 7 comes. And unfortunately for Jimmy, there's 3 guys, all younger than him, all with the rest of their careers to look forward to. And you've got Jimmy, who lost Chad Knaus because it was quite obvious that relationship was on the decline. I mean, you could hear Radioactive, and you can find races where they're just pissed off at each other and they're jawing at each other. And one thing that a lot of people probably don't realize is that Chad Knaus is not the same crew chief he was 10 years ago. The guy's got a family, he's got a wife, he's got that to worry about. He's not the kind of guy that's going to be first in the shop, last out anymore. He's at probably the tail end of his career. I 100% see sooner rather than later him making the same jump that Steve Letarte did, especially when it seems like Letarte's enjoying himself. And he's damn good at it. Canals has done shows on Speed and Fox and all that, and he's really good, and he's really savvy, and he's intelligent. And unfortunately for Jimmy, doesn't have that, and he's bounced between 2 crew chiefs, and just when they finally have Speed this week, when he needs it more than ever, he gets wrecked by his own teammate. So you combine not only bad luck, which you cannot have when you're running in a mediocre position every week, where 6th is like your ceiling. You have jumping crew chiefs, and you're basically the 4th car in the field for Hendrick, which at this point, that's just insane to think that he's not the guy anymore. Chase is obviously who they're going with. Bowman has a win this year. Byron has produced top 5 finishes very, very often lately, and he's getting close to a win. I think he's very close to a win, closer than most people think. So, I mean, you hate to see it. I mean, we use that phrase a lot, but you hate to see it for Jimmy.
it's gonna be a different playoff without him, and yeah, he hasn't really done much in these playoff style formats except for that one time where he won a seventh championship. Other than that, he really hasn't done much since its inception. But it's gonna be different not seeing him there, not having that storyline to talk about with him chasing eight. Um, it 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 was a telltale sign when Lowe's was leaving last year. Lowe's Home Improvement had been sponsoring him since the beginning of his Cup Series career, and then all of a sudden they make some restructuring, and now they're not, and they had to go out and get a new sponsor, and they have Ally Financial now, which have they really embraced um this sponsorship with Jimmy Johnson. It's just it's it's sad for all parties involved that the results haven't been there, and not to say that it's all Jimmy Johnson's fault at all. Like you just mentioned, the Camaro has definitely not been, what Chevrolet was thinking it was going to be for them. Um, and Hendrick Motorsports also having all of their talented drivers retiring and getting these new drivers in have probably not helped in any sense of the imagination either. But Jimmy's not going to be on this playoff grid that I got up in here. Instead, the last two in ended up being Clint Boyer and Ryan Newman. And the two out were Jimmy Johnson and Daniel Suarez. And it was that was pretty much the only big compelling part to the end of the Cup Series race on Sunday was can Suarez catch up? Can he pass Newman? If he was able to do that in the closing laps, it would have been Suarez in, Newman out. But and then Boyer missed a couple of wrecks as well. That there was crazy misses. If he would have been involved, then he would have been out, and it would have been Suarez in. It was just that was really the only big compelling part that I was paying attention to in the race. But now we've got a 16 car field set. I made my predictions before. Have you made any predictions yet on who's gonna make it all the way?
I mean, I think there's a lot of obvious ones. I think it's going to be between probably six guys, at least to the very end, the final four. It's going to be either the three Gibbs guys and a Ford, or the three Fords and a Gibbs guy. I mean, that's honestly how I think it's going to break down. It's going to be four of those six guys. Keselowski's probably the sixth out of the six, but I mean, they're going to Martinsville in the round of 8. He destroyed everyone there. Texas, all it takes is someone being in clean air to win there, and then ISM Raceway, same thing. I mean, Kyle Busch was ridiculously fast there in the spring, so I mean, I think that's not going to change. And of course, you have Harvick, who's dominant there. So I mean, it really just depends on those three races. I think it's going to be three winners, and then the fourth or the best points guy out of the round of 8. And I don't think it's going to be someone like Elliott. I don't think it's going to be Kurt. As far as my rough, real quick, round of 12, round of 8, round of 4. I think Newman gets the boot. I think Boyer hangs on. I think Almirola gets the boot. I think Larson gets the boot. And I think Byron may be the fourth guy if it's not Boyer getting eliminated. Just because he's been quick, but he's also run 20th a lot this year. And this is showtime. And you cannot run 20th. You got to push top 10s every single week, and they've showed some inconsistency. Dover sucks. God, why do they have to go to that track?
I'll be there.
I'm sorry. They got Vegas, Richmond, and Charlotte. The Roval obviously is going to play a huge factor. Anyone can win that. So, I mean, it's going to be a toss-up. I think for the round of 12. I think Blaney's going to get eliminated. if it's not Boyer getting eliminated in the round of 16, I think he does get eliminated in the round of 12. His luck is so bad this year, and a lot of it's self-made. And I mean, barring a crazy win, this field is good, but I think Jones gets the dump this round. It's going to be close. Uh, it's honestly going to come down to wins, and there was only 11 guys that won this year, so and they're all right here. So any of those guys can win. It's the way this package is. All it takes is being out front. If you can make the right call and stay out front and work the draft and work the dirty air, you can stop anybody. So, I mean, shoot, I could be wrong, and Almirola wins in the round of 12, and then he wins Talladega there, and then he goes to the round of 8, and then he somehow sneaks a win into Martinsville, and then he's in the Final Four. Like, it could be anything like that. So, but I mean, in terms of the Final Four, if I had, like, gun to my head, I'd say Kyle Busch, Denny Hamlin, Joey Logano, and Kevin Harvick. Because I'm not as high as are not as high on Truex as a lot of people, especially this year. He just seems off. He hasn't been quite there this year. Whether it's Cole Perrin, whether it's him. I mean, I've never really been high on him as a driver. I think if you put Cole Perrin with someone like Matt DiBenedetto, I think you'd have the same results, if not better. So that's my personal opinion on the matter, but it's going to be close. I think the biggest thing is we're going to have to watch who wins these races, and I think it's going to be there could be some surprises, especially Vegas. Vegas is at night. We've never ran there at night for the Cup Series, at least that I can remember, and it's going to be fun. I think it's going to be really fun to watch. This package sucks, but at least there's some decent races to look forward to in the first 6 weeks. Minus Dover. Dover sucks.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing how it all plays out. I made my predictions earlier in the day, posted it in one of the threads in SRG. I copied it and pasted it into a text document here up on the screen. I've got Newman out, of course. It's incredible that he even made it into the playoffs, but he's not going to make it past the first round. He barely got in, and he's going to continue doing what he's been doing, but it's not going to be enough to, have him move on from there. Boyer, same thing. He hasn't had the season to be able to move on. And then I also have the Hendrick teammates of Byron and Bowman being eliminated in the first round, just because I feel like... Wow. Bowman specifically because he hasn't had... since his win at Chicagoland, he's only had one top 10. He hasn't been doing anything lately. And Byron, I'm just going to go with the inexperience and the inability to put a full race together. The next 4 out, I got the champ, Joey Logano. He's not making it out of the round of 12. I feel like he's in the same boat as Bowman. Granted, he got a second place finish and a stage win at Indianapolis. I just don't think the momentum's on his side. I don't have him getting out. I don't think Eric Jones is going to move on past this round. I also don't think Kyle Larson, if he doesn't start winning now, he's not going to start winning then.
You don't think Jones has the momentum on his side? Like, that's the only reason why I think he could possibly get into the final 8.
I do think Jones does have momentum on his side, but Jones is so unpredictable that, he has moments like at Daytona last year where he won, and then he just falls off the face of the earth. And he falls off until he starts getting a couple more top fives, and then has that win, and now he just had that wreck at Indianapolis. And I don't know. I think Jones's inexperience is not gonna, and it's maybe not even Eric Jones, more that it's just the people that he's racing against, that I just feel more confident in these drivers to not, screw up as much or to have better races. So I got Jones out, I got Larson out, and I got Almirola out in the round of 12. Um, and then making it to the final 8, but not making it to the championship 4, Chase Elliott. He's shown, signs of brilliance from here. You know, that win at Watkins Glen was an absolute, masterpiece on his part. He won at Talladega. But other than those races, he hasn't really done much for himself at a lot of these tracks that we're going to be going to, as far as like the mile and a halfs and the intermediate tracks. So I think he'll have enough points to get to the round of 8, but other than that, I don't think he's going to be championship for material this year. Same goes for Kurt Busch. Hell of a year this year. It's incredible that he took that team that Jamie McMurray was in last year. It wasn't even a playoff team. Turned it into a playoff team. Turned it into a threat every week. And he just, he put the team on the board with the win. But
it was a good win. That's a really good win.
It was a great win, really awesome. and he's been there in a lot of the races, but I just don't think he's going to find the magic. And then I got the Penske teammates, Keselowski and Blaney, not making it to the Final Four. Blaney's had a really up and down year. I think that he'll have consistency on his side, but his inability to find his way to victory lane is going to cost him a chance at being in the Final Four. Because, like you said, I think that we're going to have 3 winners and the highest point guy make it in. That highest point guy I have is going to be Martin Truex Jr. I don't think he's going to win, but I think he's going to have enough points to make it into the Final Four. I got Kyle Busch winning one of those 3 races. I got Kevin Harvick winning one of those 3 races, and I got Denny Hamlin winning one of those 3 races. And I think this is Denny Hamlin's year. I think that he's had enough. I think he's paid enough of his dues. He's had heartbreak on multiple occasions in the championship. And I think that he finally figures it out this year and finds his way into the Homestead Miami victory lane and championship circle.
I mean, we'll see. It's a good. I think that's a good overall. Like I said, I was basically just going through and just kind of spitballing. I mean, the only real gripe I may have is Elliott over Jones in the round of 8. I haven't seen anything from Chase Elliott other than Watkins Glen. I really think at this very moment, if I want to pick a guy for raw speed, I would pick Byron. He finished 4th at Indy. He finished 4th at Pocono. He's been on the pole for a couple of these races in the summer. And, I mean, that stuff counts towards the end in terms of what do you got? Like I said, the only real... I mean, you have Truex in there instead of Logano for me. I just think one of those Penske guys has to get their way in there, or at least damn near close. I don't think there's any wrong answer if you put 4 of those 6 guys in, regardless of how you have it set up. So, I mean, I would be very happy for Denny Hamlin. He definitely deserves it. Homestead's going to be really interesting because of this package. It's not going to be the same as what we have now, or what we've had the last few years. It's going to be very different, and I think that Highline is going to be insanely fast because of the big spoiler. But I think the whole track is going to be faster. And thankfully, the progressive banking will allow for these guys to get out of the dirty air. Maybe they'll be able to slingshot to the bottom, get a big run out of the corner and side draft and make passes that way. But I think we got a lot of good races to look forward to in the playoffs. Like I mentioned, I'm excited to see what Vegas produces. That'll be pretty much a late afternoon to evening race. Richmond should be okay. Charlotte will be insane. Dover, unfortunately, there's nothing you can really do to save Dover unless there's a 15-car wreck with 5 laps to go and you end up having some kind of surprise winner. Talladega should be insane. They finally have a good package where they can actually pass. Kansas should be good. It was good earlier this year. I don't see it being any different. Martinsville should be good. Texas should be okay. ISM may be a questionable race in terms of the quality. The racing wasn't very good. It never really is when they have these big spoilers. I think they need to revisit the 2020 package and put the smaller spoilers on the mile and under tracks. If they're running the 750 horsepower, they need to run the 2-inch spoiler. That's just my opinion. And Richmond showed that. ISM showed that earlier this year. So then you have Homestead. So I mean, we have a pretty good setup for the playoffs, and it should be a good race for Vegas.
It should be. I'm looking forward to get these playoffs started and seeing how it all plays out. Um, Speaking of playoffs, we are one race into 3 in the iRacing series, the PK Antifreeze series, and nobody is locked in yet to their playoff race, which was announced. I don't think if we since the last time you and I have been on air, I don't think we knew about this. I know Blake talked about it, but it was officially announced that they were doing it on Thursday, October 10th on NBCSN. So
Which is awesome.
yeah, it's gonna be great for the series. I don't know about the drivers, that have to change their work schedules up and try to get off for that race. I don't know if we're gonna have a full 40 car field for it. I know I've been talking with Chris Overland because him and I are working on doing something pretty cool at Talladega when I go to that with the iRacing guys that are going there. Stay tuned for that. But he's going to be at Talladega that weekend, so now he's, instead of racing on Tuesday and then traveling to Talladega, he's got to race on Thursday and then rush to Talladega before they start any on-track activities on Friday. So it for those guys it might be a little bit difficult as well. But it's still pretty cool that they get to race on TV, and their championship race is going to be on TV. They have the Brickyard. What are they going to do? They're going to do 100 laps tomorrow night.
That sounds right.
Yeah, I think they're doing 100 laps at Indianapolis. They're going to be racing their version of this package, which ends up being a lot better than what the actual package is in real life. So I'm looking forward to tomorrow night. And
It's pretty bad. I ran some A-Fix last week,
uh-huh.
and I know a lot of the guys that I associate myself with ran NIS this week or this past week, and Aero Push is very real. It's the first race of the year, first track of the year, except for maybe Pocono, but Pocono wasn't as bad either. That it was a huge issue in terms of the racing quality. So I think this might be the first race of the year that the Aero Push is going to matter. So I think a lot of these guys are going to be getting their short run speed as a priority, because man, if you qualify 20th, I think that's where you're going to finish for this race tomorrow.
It'll be interesting to see. I haven't turned any laps on iRacing since their last event. I mentioned it on Twitter. I like to, during the races, I'll do the test drive just to see. I know it's like open setups and whatnot. And I'm using the stock setup, so I'm not really basing much of anything on anything. I just want to see how the track is and how the car feels and whatnot. And I'm absolutely terrible, and my ghost car is no match for their real cars, and still a cool experience. It's cool that iRacing allows people to do that. But yeah, I'll look forward to doing that again tomorrow night, covering it or putting the coverage in for TRE. Catch that after the race. So if I don't pass out first, I'm absolutely exhausted right now. It's 12:11 in the morning. You got anything lined up for the rest of the week there, Kev?
Work. I'm off Saturday, which is new for me. That doesn't really happen that often. So I'm sure I won some go-kart tickets from I Drive NASCAR because I answer one of their questions. They always present like some kind of trivia question during the week, and I end up answering it like 90% of the time, first or second. So I've got a bunch of those tickets. So I'll probably go there. I'm trying to figure out how long this race is tomorrow. I think it's either 80 or 100. They normally run 50%, but I'm hoping they run 100 because man, that race would be boring if and short if they did
It would
80.
be really short if they did 80.
Yeah, so we'll see. Doesn't really matter. We'll figure it out tomorrow. But yeah, I just got work, so nothing really to look forward to. The sick reality of that trip we were gonna do. I forgot to take my vacation request out, so I'm off the week of the Roval. But I'm probably not gonna go. I'm probably not gonna go, so I'm just gonna stay home and chill.
I was gonna go to the Roval because of what we were gonna do, and I mean, you should try to talk to your boss about trying to get that switched to the 2 weeks after that for Talladega.
I can't. One of my other coworkers asked me if she could have it because she has to visit her grandmother in Honduras that week, and I don't want to deal with guess who died that weekend, and I couldn't go because you wanted to go to some fucking redneck race.
Yikes.
So, yeah, so I don't want that. So she can have it.
That is sad. I will miss you at Talladega. But yeah, I think that's all we got for tonight as far as our podcast is concerned. I'm gonna go pass out in my bed, wake up in about 3 hours and do it all over again. So thanks everybody for tuning in tonight. I'm gonna try and get it up on the streaming services. I don't know how I'm gonna do it, but I'll figure it out. I'll find a way.
I have faith.
I have faith too. I don't know how the hell I'm gonna do it, but I'll figure it out. But if it gets there, it'll be on Apple, Spotify, or Google Play. Hopefully, it'll also be able to get up on YouTube as well if I'm able to do it that way. If not, then enjoy it on Facebook Live this weekend, and I'll remember to hit the record button next week. We're 18 episodes in. This is really the first blunder that I've had as far as this is concerned. So I'll take it. Hopefully episode 19 will be better. So yeah, thanks everybody for tuning in. Catch us all next Monday at 10 p.m. We'll see you for the next episode of For the Fans podcast. I'm Justin Melillo. That's Kevin McAdams. Have a good night.
Goodbye.